When you hear the word Coromantee, what comes to your mind? A place, a people, or a legacy of warriors who refused to be broken. They organized secret meetings, they led massive uprisings, and they carried the spirit of Africa into the Caribbean. One of them even led the most historical rebellion in the history of slave trade. This is the story of the Coromantee. When you hear the word Coromantee, for some, it is just an old name buried in the history of slave trade. But the truth is, Coromantee is more than just a name. It is a story of resistance, rebellion, and unshakable African spirit. The word Coromantee comes from
Coromantee,
a coastal town in the present-day Ghana. In the 1600s and the 1700s,
Coromantee
was the largest British slave trade port. But the Europeans did not just use the name for people taken from
Coromantee
alone. They used it for all Akan speaking people from Gold Coast, which we know today as Ghana. People from Ashanti, Fante, Akiem, and others. When these Africans were forced across the Atlantic, their reputation followed them into the Caribbean. Coromantees were known to be strong-willed, fearless, and rebellious. Planters and the leaders of the slave trade both respected and feared them. Why? Because they didn't bow easily. In Jamaica, Coromantee leaders sparked one of the largest slave trade rebellion in history, the Taki Rebellion of 1760. Across the Americas, in Guyana, Suriname, and Barbados, Coromantee leaders and warriors organized revolts that shook the foundation of slave trade itself. In the spring of 1760, Jamaica is one of British most profitable colonies, and these farms were worked on by enslaved Africans under brutal conditions. Among the Africans working on these farms were the Coromantees, men and women from Gold Coast, people from Akan nations, known for their discipline, warrior traditions, and proud resistance to oppressions. One of these men was Taki, the leader of the rebellion. Taki was believed to be a chief or a military leader back in Africa. In the dead of one of the nights in April 1760, Taki whispered freedom to his fellow Coromantees. They were tired of the whips, the chains, and the endless fields of cane. Together, they dreamed of a new world there on the Jamaican soil. A new world where they would govern and lead themselves. And when the moment came in the morning, Taki and his fellow Coromantees struck with precision. The war started at St. Mary's Parish in Jamaica. They killed guards with their bare hands and sticks and seized guns and gunpowder. With weapons in their hands, they moved from plantation to plantation, freeing enslaved Africans. And within some moments, freedom was within reach. But the alarm spread quickly, and the British called in the militia, the Maroons, who are also Africans who escaped slavery but now are in treaty with the British. Taki and his men fought with all bravery, but they were outnumbered by the Maroon. And eventually, that was the end of the rebellion. Taki was killed in the battle. His head was cut off and hung on the tree as a sign of warning for others. But even though Taki was killed, for months the fire elite still burned among the Coromantees. For months, smaller uprisings continued across the island, fueled by courageous, brave Africans who are tired of slavery. In the end, the British quenched the fire of rebellion that was quickly spreading in the island as they execute hundreds of Africans and tightening the chains of slave trade again. Tacky's rebellion lived on in history and in memory. It became one of the most powerful symbols of resistance in the Caribbean, showing that the Coromantee spirit of Africa could not be broken easily. To be called a Coromantee is more than just where you came from. It meant you have a reputation of resistance. These are the people who carried African spirit with them into one of the most brutal conditions, and still they proved to be unbroken. Today in Jamaica, the spirit of the Coromantee still lives right there amongst them. The influence is alive and thriving in Jamaica's culture, in Suriname's Maroon communities, in music, in language, and in every tradition that celebrates survival and freedom. Though now in history, but Coromantee is a badge of honor, one that showed that African ancestors in diaspora didn't just endure slavery, they resisted it. To know more about African cultures, African history, and African tradition, anywhere you are around the world, subscribe to Lucam Studios YouTube channel today.